All in favor?
Aye.
Post same sign. Comment public? Unfinished. New business. Discussion of village council priorities.
Thank you. I asked for this topic because obviously I'm very new here, and I wanted to hear from the board members and others in attendance what you believe the priorities of the village are. I think it's very important that we create what we believe are the top priorities for me in the next couple of months and the staff, so that we can all be on the same page to get those accomplished and get some of that groundwork laid for the new staff that will be coming aboard, the new manager and the new clerk treasurer. So I thought tonight would be a good opportunity, especially we have the holidays coming up and Labor Day, so this was a good opportunity to get done. I appreciate being able to move the meeting from yesterday to tonight. So with that, Madam President, there's no set rule of this, but whoever wants to maybe start out with some of their thoughts, thought we would take these down and start having a discussion. Once we get a few of them out there, we can go around the room with the trustees first and start hearing your priorities and then try to figure out where we are with them. Can you hear me good? Okay.
Well, I'll start
And if you could,
slowly.
a little bit, yeah, and if we can, let's start with, maybe your top three.
Oh, okay. I cut it down.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that, Mayor.
I told him that I have a list of what I say the other day. I think I'm up to 69, but,
Let's just hear the top three.
okay. Village manager, village clerk, budgets and simplification. Now, I should say, let me regress a minute. In July, we passed resolutions, and the three resolutions were bulk water sales, develop, implement simplified budget format, and verify all village-owned real estate. Those were the three resolutions that we passed. So, as long as we passed a resolution and it's already out there, I'm going to add MERS. MERS.
Okay. And could you be a little more specific when you say MERS? What do you mean?
I mean that I know that we are underfunded and we need some plan in place to
Address the
Address
funding
that.
level? Okay. So if you could, I'm going to ask you for specification because I'm not from here. So all the things that you guys do every day or in the last year or two or whatever, and you know all your acronyms, I don't. So I'm going to ask you sometimes, could you be a little more specific? Because you might say MERS and you know what you know, but maybe we don't, so that's great. So what I have from you, Madam President, is fill the village manager position, fill the village clerk position, do budgets, get the budget in a simplification format, get a, you said village real estate, I assume you mean some type of...
I don't know how you want to address that because we already passed resolutions. In other words, in July, we decided that we wanted to do those.
When you say do them, what do you mean?
We passed resolutions directing administration to carry out tasks associated with the resolutions. It was a practice that we put in place as a policy-making board to put in resolution format things that we wanted administration to undertake. James was in the acting chair at that time and was present when we made the resolutions. So for example, one of the resolutions was to direct administration to come up with a list of all the village-owned real estate so that we could decide which properties we were going to market, which properties, what are we doing We wanted to know,
Okay, so you want an accounting of all the properties?
Correct.
And places the village owns?
Correct. So the resolutions,
Address?
right, the resolutions were fairly specific in what they requested.
Okay.
But that's not to say that, I might not now necessarily think that's one of my high five,
It might not be.
even though we did a resolution, but I just wanted you to
The
know.
resolutions did not direct any time, they just were
Right.
directives to administration that from a policy standpoint, the council wants those things done.
And I can tell you from like my standpoint, okay, I know it's out there now, and I can look to direct people, if it turns out we already have it, or it's in some format, but maybe not completed, we'll find out where it is, and then I can report back to the board, hey, we don't have anything right now, we gotta start from scratch, and here are the top 5 or 6, where does this fall? So, do you want to go left or you want to go right?
Doesn't matter. Eric?
Dave, go for it.
Right now, I don't have any listed priorities.
Okay.
And I suppose that's a good sign, because if all the council members were at each other's throats, then we have a totally different list of priorities. There'd be 5 lists of priorities with no relationship between any of them.
Okay.
So I'm full.
You good?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Mine all have to do with the office. I think we have to look at hiring a bookkeeper, educating the employees we have, and seriously look at the incredible wage discrepancies that go on in that office.
Yeah, she is very knowledgeable about the office, and has been for many, many years.
2 minutes.
Okay. Repeat them again, please. Hire
Hiring
a
a
bookkeeper.
bookkeeper,
Educate.
educating the staff,
And then the third one?
looking
Wage.
into the wage discrepancies.
Okay. Give me a little bit more on educate the staff.
I think that several of our staff members could use
Train.
going to my community college to take a basic accounting class, getting BSNA out there to do a training for them. We've got these programs, we're not teaching anybody how to use them.
Okay.
Something.
Okay. That's what I'm asking for.
And they don't necessarily have time to learn until we hire a bookkeeper.
Yeah, we're a little short. Okay. So right now, Maureen, I got 3 from you, right? Do you-
Yeah. No, that's enough for now.
It's good for right now?
I'll give you a week, go.
I appreciate it. Bob?
I communicated mine to you by email today, but I can restate them. I think that from a legal standpoint, the priorities for the village are to prepare for the audit, maintain and bring current the general ledger and all accounting functions with a focus on payables and receivables, ensure that council is updated, provide professional and accurate agendas and meeting minutes, and conduct the business of the village at our meetings in a well-organized fashion so that the public has confidence that the village business is being carried out. One of the things I would like to remind council is that public comment period is a one-way communication. I think to the extent that you engage during public comment period is never helpful. Mr. Dunn, would you agree with that?
Oh,
It's never fruitful. It never turns out well.
deciding agenda items.
Right. And that is the danger, by the way, under engaging during, I'm glad you said that, Bill. Engaging during public comment period it can run afoul of the Open Meetings Act really quick, because what happens is Dave Bailey's a member of the public and he raises something. Now we're talking about it.
Not on the
And then
agenda.
Eric says, I think it's a good idea. And now we've turned it into an agenda item that wasn't posted.
With action that then wasn't
Yeah,
posted.
so we just got to avoid it. It's so hard, I understand. Because you want to either nip the issue, answer the question, or make it go away. But a well-organized meeting, you do not respond to public comment.
Another way that can play out is somebody, sitting over there maybe in the audience, asks a perfectly innocent question, and Dave Bailey answers it perfectly innocently, and then a week later, Dave wakes up in the middle of the night and says, "Oh my God, I really made a misstatement." Well, gee, if that had been on the agenda for the next meeting, I would have had time to ponder it, and I wouldn't have made that error, as opposed to
Yep.
shooting from the hip.
So don't do it. We need to have very structured, well-organized meetings.
I can go back to, because I was announcing that at every meeting, beginning of every meeting.
I
And then
wrote
it
you a
was kind
script
of going
once.
along and everybody was minding their P's and Q's.
And then it
I
slips
think
away.
Just at the last meeting, but
No, it slips away gradually. It happens everywhere. Don't feel unique in this regard. This is not a village of
Yeah.
Oxford issue.
And it's,
Believe me.
and I don't, it's not
Yeah.
an indictment.
No, it's
I'll give you-
not.
no,
I'll give
I
you,
know,
for
but I
instance,
mean,
Every community does this, and once in a while.
Makes an announcement?
Yeah. No,
Oh.
they slip into dialogue during the public
Right.
comment. Don't feel special or unique. It happens. Just every once in a while, we gotta check ourselves and say, don't do it.
The best part of it for this, and I tell people this all the time, there's a book of ordinances, there's a book of state statutes. I don't know them all, and I didn't memorize them, okay?
Oh, shit.
Why did we hire him?
Yeah, really.
What good are you?
When you call Bob didn't memorize them. He may know them, but he didn't memorize them. But he has to go look them up. He wants to give you an opinion based upon that. So if you just answer people, more times than not, like the chief and I were talking about some today, he may want to go look at it. Don may want to go look at it. We may not have been through a particular corner section or whatever. You think you remember it, but then you go back out there and you go, oh yeah. And answering the public without doing that research is tough. And then you don't know why they're angry, and then you say something and they just get angry. So I think that's an interesting comment. I think it gets down to how you conduct your meetings.
Business.
Nothing personal.
Business.
Let's see.
Eric,
Eric.
Mine are pretty basic, since I think organizationally we have a lot of new faces and in a lot of ways are starting over. I think we need to start over. Our priorities basic. Mine, like several others, starts with budgetary status, simplification, and education. I think before we can conduct any business, we need to know exactly what the budget is, exactly where it stands. And I think it would benefit the organization to simplify the process so that we don't end up in debates and discussions as we have the two previous budget years. I understand a lot of different organizations have simplified that. It would behoove us to reach out to them and find out a better way to do it than we do. I think after we have achieved those things, and this is still in my number one, I think management should come back and educate council. So all council members are on the same page with the same understanding, and we have some continuity and understanding of what our process is. Because right now, I think we don't have, I know we do not have that.
Okay.
I would venture a guess that not one council member sitting here today has a complete understanding of where we stand financially, period. I don't think there's anything more important than that at this moment, and I think it has to happen quick.
Is that still under your number one?
Yes.
Okay.
Budget.
Budget, including financial.
Simplification, budget status, simplification, and education, number one.
That's three. Status of creation, that's it. You're-
Subcategories of one.
This is like Rocky Dangerfield back to school. One question in 27 different parts.
I got you.
Great movie.
I think,
Hey, come on.
second, we need to search for and hire a permanent manager. As much as I enjoy having Evan here, and I appreciate what you've brought, we need to have continuity so when the department heads and the staff come in, they see security. I actually have four. Number three is staffing. I think right now we need to evaluate the staffing. I think we need to hear from the two department heads and from the manager about the office and find out if we have an appropriate staffing level for day-to-day operations. And if we do not, we need to come back to number one and find in the budget where we can find the funds to appropriately staff the organization. Number 4 is MERS as well. MERS, as you indicated, you might not be familiar with that. That's Michigan's retirement system, correct. We put into that, they match, invest, et cetera, et cetera. I've been harping on this for about a year. I've been sending emails on it. So far, it hasn't been a huge priority for obvious reasons, because there are other priorities. But it needs to be, I would say it's a tie with number 3. We need to make sure that these individuals know that there's a reason why they're here and why they're working. And we need to find how we're going to appropriately fund our MERS contribution. Just because we're in MERS doesn't mean at the end of the day, if we have a problem, their retirements are going to be solid. So I would like, as subcategories of number 4, us to contact a MERS representative. I would like to have a MERS representative come to this physical site and explain their system, explain our exact funding so the department heads understand what it is, or any staff members, because it involves every one of them. And I would like us to have, as a group, a full understanding of what that means. And then I would like us as a group to discuss how we are going to find money in number 1 to make up an appropriate difference in MERS, so those pensions are there. It's one of the biggest priorities as far as I'm concerned.
It's important, yeah. Okay. You know, if you're open to it, we can go around the table and talk with the department heads as well.
Absolutely.
Okay with you?
I'll go first. Stability in our office with proper staffing levels. Ordinance enforcement. I've spoken about this at our budget workshops. And I think if we want our property values to be at a certain level, our ordinance enforcement needs to be there also. Number 3, I guess, the list that I have given the last several budget meetings with infrastructure needs due to, in terms of, water main projects, street projects, and the purchase of some equipment that's starting to age would be my priorities. And just a side note for staffing levels, at this point with the our workload, we are staffed properly, and then in the summer hiring the 1 or 2 seasonal employees for 3 months has helped us tremendously with doing additional projects like painting the 186 fire hydrants this year. So just as a side note, staffing levels in our department for what is asked from us at this point is sufficient.
Chief?
I think that's our biggest priority is at the police department is our staffing level. I've had to cut some fat in regards to some of our part-time staff due to their availability. Full-time position that we had back in 2008 that we haven't gotten back, which is our other midnight position. We are staffing with part-time staff at a 40-hour basis. And that's hard to find. We get somebody in here that we're currently training right now, a new officer for part-time. It's going to take some time to train them. The hurdle that we find ourselves in with part-time, this has been going on for several years, is we have a part-time officer, we get him trained and then he's gone, he goes to another agency and gets a full-time position. Or you get an older retired officer that doesn't want to work midnights and he's limited to what hours he can work. Unfortunately, we're a 24/7 operation, so we have to run this ship all year long, all day long. So our biggest, or my biggest request for the agency is to get that fourth full-time position back. Bring our staffing level to where every shift is covered by a full-timer. Part-time should be used to cover vacations, if somebody calls in sick, or maybe even as a second car, not utilized on a 40-hour basis, because it's a revolving door. They come and go, and it makes it hard for an agency as far as with inconsistencies as well. So that's our biggest hurdle we're facing right now. But besides that, we're moving forward, and staffing is, everybody's heads are up, and we're ready to move on day by day. So we're encouraged on some of the things that are happening, and really everybody's sure right now. I think next year, that's next year. As far as our vehicles, I want uniformity. We have Chevy, we have Dodges, we have Fords. I'd like to get to the point of having vehicles with the same equipment in it. We've gone to different companies over the years to try to save money, to where we have different jobs that are done in different cars, different equipment, different placement. I think it's important that placement be the same in the vehicles with our equipment. So we're working on that. We're now back with Synergy in Troy to get that rectified. Next year, I'm going to be looking into, if all works well, is to asking for an SUV for midnights, especially for when the bad weather hits. And they are a little more expensive, but the resale is better on them, and they're safer for the officers. So that is something that we're going to look into as well. We are looking into creating a task force called SWOOP. It's serving warrants out of Oxford Police. That's one of my projects I want to get moving forward here coming up this fall. We don't have the utilization of our jail cell because we don't have dispatch to watch our in custodies. So what we're going to do is we're going to utilize our reserve program and our part-time staff without trying to utilize as much overtime as possible to bring in misdemeanor arrests. Whether we make a misdemeanor arrest on the road or it's a misdemeanor warrant, we're finding, and we're not the only agency, but a lot of agencies will call and ask for a pickup, and usually if it's a misdemeanor, you can't lodge due to the overcrowding of the jail. So unless it's a felony, front of the court warrant, drunk driver, or domestic, they're not going to lodge on a misdemeanor. So what we've come up with is a way to have reserve come in and watch an inmate if we do have to house them until the morning time, in order to start to clear up some of these files that we have instead of constantly saying advise and release, advise and release, advise and release. So I want the reputation of our agency that if you don't take care of business, Oxford's going to come and get you. So that's another project that I'd like to get going, moving forward on. That's going to be coming up soon. Trying to really think of anything else. I think that's it. There's some other things. There's some traffic issues and some sign issues that I've been looking at as well. And I know it's been an issue in the past. Glassby Street, Glassby, where Glassby and Powell is, where Poundland Trail is, where the stop sign is. There's been questions asked in regards to possibly changing that stop sign to a yield sign. And also the parking that is on the west side of Glassby Street between East Street and Lakeville Court. What happens is if there's cars parked there and they're going southbound on Glassby Street, it prohibits cars that want to go south. It clogs up traffic that want to turn left.
Is that a priority?
No, I'm sorry. This is just a project.
Okay.
I'm sorry. See, you get me going. I just
Well, I just,
Okay, not a priority, down the road, my bad. That's it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought
That's a subsection.
you had me at the fourth officer.
Got it.
You had me at the fourth officer.
All right.
You had me good with the vehicle.
Then cut it off underneath.
There you go.
We're good. Okay. Otherwise, everything's fine. Thanks, guys.
Chief?
Not my volume.
Okay, just thought I'd offer to you.
DDA.
He hasn't even started yet, but why don't you tell him? You want to pop in?
Sure.
Well, just listening, I hear budget. A couple of things I've worked with in other communities, because I've worked in a lot of distressed communities, so this is going to be nice to work in a non-distressed community. There are a lot of budgeting resources out there to help communities move to a 2-year rolling performance budget as opposed to an annualized item line budget. It's just something that lets it go on a continual basis, and there's the benchmarking consortium, which allows you to look at, what other communities have done to address retirement, look at those contributions and look at that and see what it's worked. So there are organizations out there that you can reach out to for assistance on all that. So that's just something that pops into my head from having worked in 20-odd communities in the last 3 years. In terms of assistance, because you're talking about what do we need to do about ethics, what do we need to do about simplifying and making our budget work better. And so these are things that really popped into my head from work I've done with fiscal sustainability teams out of the Department of Treasury. So,
Okay. Guess that leaves me. I could certainly echo everything that was said except for the stop signs. Just gonna get crap cheap.
I'm learning.
It's all right. It's all right. In not in particular order yet, as I echo, get the management and staff straightened out in the front office. That includes the manager, clerk treasurer, general ledger, accounting. All of that and financials has to be taken care of. One of my goals is when the manager is brought on board and the clerk, it's a lot smoother and a lot of things are settled, including these priorities. Here, Miss Manager, Mr. Manager, here's what the board just did in August and affirmed. Here's your list. You don't have to wonder about it. Hopefully, the entire office staff will have been taken care of by then. You need to focus on these priorities. And the audit will be well underway. Budget document and the process. I think that if from hearing what you have all said and seeing what it is, you can have a budget that says you're balanced. But if you don't know how you got there and you don't know what your priorities are in that budget, that's not helpful. Because then you all are looking for whatever, maybe, I don't want to call you a pet project, but a project you thought was important but didn't get funded and you don't know why. So that process has to, and maybe with some of Glenn's help and others, find a process that's more inclusive and more educational than just numbers and a ream of papers. And I'll be talking with the department heads about that. I mentioned get caught up on all our financials. It is very important that your financials are up to date, and it leads into knowing how much money you have and be able to do decisions from a knowledge base, not a guess. Very important. And the last one, M24. M24 is very important to this village. That includes being part of the planning process, figuring out the funding for the village's contribution to M24, and including right-of-way acquisition and public involvement. I cannot think right now of anything bigger that's going to happen to this community in the next couple of years than M24 if it goes through. For those of you who may or may not know, they're not just going curb to curb. They're going sidewalk to sidewalk, okay? They are going to repave all of M24 from the southern end of town to just short of the bridge. it's going to affect not only every business on that street, it's going to affect Lake Orion and other ways, because people are now going to try to zigzag every which way, and your businesses are going to be affected. And so I think tying into that as a priority, the village has to get its head around M24, and we need to get on the same page with our Chamber of Commerce, with the DDA, with the business community, with the fire, with police, with the state, and with our residents of what M24 is really going to mean. Because if you lose, let's say half your businesses, a third of your businesses, you will spend the next decade trying to get those spaces filled. Am I, sorry buddy, but am I?
lose that money.
Yeah, but if you lose it, you'll spend the next decade trying to get back what you already had and hopefully do better, but you don't want to do that. You'll have, so we need to get on the same page. We need to understand what's going to happen. We need to know the funding. We need to know all of what's going to happen and the timing, and then all be moving in the same direction. Because you're not going to be able to accommodate everybody. You're just not. And the other thing with MDOT, we have to figure out and prioritize how they're going to do it. Because there's a couple different ways they can do it. You have to pick a lane, pun intended, and stick with it. Because once they start and they do their contract documents, that's it. That's your project. So those are the priorities. Before I jump back into what we all heard and maybe arranging it a bit, anybody got anything to add? Maybe you forgot something, maybe you heard something. Okay. Thank you. That's great. Eric, you look like you want to say something.
I don't know.
And I'm a little, and I'm a
I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, so I'm
looking at
waiting.
that look.
Let me ask this, going to all the comments about the office. How far away are you from being able to give a report to council about what you think the office needs?
I could do that.
Can I just ask a question? Because as people were saying things, there's like, can we combine some of those under the heading of budget simplification
Yeah.
or something? Because staffing is a money issue, infrastructure is a money, MERS is a money.
I don't think they have anything to do with each other, Sue.
But they all involve spending money, and if we don't have money in the budget, you can't do any of the rest of this.
I totally disagree. But they've got to be looked at whether we've got the money to do it or not.
And, well, we can look at it, but what if you don't have money to do it? What?
It's got to be
You have
looked,
to
it's got to be,
understand
we can't just
the
ignore
budget.
it. Well, we're going to discuss that under budget simplification. We don't have money, so that's what we're done. They've got to be discussed.
Well, you can discuss them, but you need to prioritize them, but it all comes down to money.
Everything comes down,
Mike's
name
cars.
something on this list that isn't money.
It's all money.
First and foremost,
I
before
know,
we even
but-
talk about staffing, we need to know what our staffing options are, and that's based on budgetary constraints.
Right. But we need an opinion on what our staffing needs are too.
And when you say opinion, are you referring to
His assessment,
continuity
Yeah.
of staffing, scheduling?
like if we want to know the staffing needs of
Quality.
DPW, we would go to Don and say, what do you
Sure.
think? I'm just wondering, and I'm not saying he has to know now, but how long until you're able to advise these folks on what the office needs are? Because until we know that, we don't need to talk about the money or anything. What do we need? Do we need another body? Do we need a body and a half? What characteristics should they have? You know, things like that. Just your assessment.
I could give a pretty good ballpark at the September 12th. There aren't that many people, but they are very important. The people of that office take in almost every dime that this village bills or receives. if not all of it. And it's really important that we have, and to the service levels and what the residents and businesses see,
Okay.
right? They need to know that when they come to the counter, there's someone there to help them and who knows what they're doing to help them. So
That's
I
about
do
as
that.
deep as we should go with personnel, but I just want to know eventually you're going to have to give an assessment.
And to your point, yeah, but see, you approved a budget, okay? You have a budget this year, okay? It includes positions in it. Some are vacant right now. Some, you have to look through all this stuff, but you have to, again, back to priorities. You can afford what you prioritize. Okay, now maybe one of your priorities you can't afford. I mean, like, if you said we need to, do something that's $1 million, obviously, you can't afford it in this budget, but then you start working towards what are your options to fund $1 million project? And what year does it fit? But you have to prioritize. You have to start working on it. Staff is not going to wait for next year's budget with some of the options that we have. It's not,
Okay.
okay.
No, I totally agree. My question in regards to the budget comes into, with all of the unanticipated, unbudgeted costs of consulting fees, additional, and this is not a knock, but due to our circumstances, we have had an increase in expenditure of attorney fees, consultant fees, an interim manager. We have had part-time clerk costs, things of that nature. My question is, are we functioning within the parameters of the budget that we have approved? And if we are, then we can utilize the budget we've approved and approve the staffing that we have budgeted for. But if we have gone outside of the budget constraints and used more than we budgeted for in other areas, then we have to evaluate what our staffing abilities are, would be my question. And since we don't know overall what those additional costs, what point they have brought us to, we can't, frankly, in my opinion, discuss anything other than staff evaluation until we know what we have to spend and are we within what we have budgeted. I don't think there's anything I don't think we could even start assessing our needs that require financial expenditures without knowing where we are.
Good point.
And I understand
That's
that,
what I was saying, but
Okay, that's,
he says it a little better. But
Well,
I mean, we're spending an obscene amount of money
Yeah.
with consultants. And
and that's why it is very important, and I see.
That's why your
And
first
that-
priority
and
is to
that's
get a
what-
manager.
And because you're spending way too much on consultants than you would on the salary and benefits of others. That's why it's a priority. That's one of the reasons why it's a priority. The other reason is stability and starting on the processes that are underneath it.
I don't think we need to overthink it. If we are within our budget and we have approved a fourth officer, we should hire the fourth officer tomorrow. But we need to know, are we within that budget?
And you're saying, as a council, you don't know.
I don't think we know, because from what I understand,
I don't know.
we have budget projects out there from Vitrino and Consulting, about a 3 to 5 year rolling budget. What's the status of that? Are we paying for that? What is the cost? How has that impacted what we have budgeted for? We had discussed a monthly budget status, which happened for 1 month, that James Vitrino had provided us with. 2 months have gone by since that's happened. Where are we at?
I'd also like to say, you said we have a budget. Any council member actually receive a full copy of the budget after all was said and done?
No.
And we also approved that budget knowing that it was just like throw some money here, I mean, there was a lot
Correct.
got thrown together. So I'd like to see a copy. I really couldn't tell you exactly what we have in police department salaries right now.
I saw it and I couldn't figure it out.
Correct.
And that's the problem that we have. Nobody's been able to figure it out.
Did you figure it out?
First of all, you need some budget amendments, because you spent money that you didn't know you were going to be spending. So go through the budget,
If we don't know, we don't even know that. We don't even know if we're still within the box.
but you still have to go through there and figure out what you just spent, where you're gonna allocate.
I
Yeah, that's what we're all saying, but it's not getting
Which
done.
would be helpful if you had a treasurer to help put those together. So, I agree.
But we don't. So
But you don't.
it has to either come from you,
Right.
or we have to hire an expert, which is more money, because we can't do anything until we know we have the funds for it. So you gotta start at ground zero.
Right. And we are working on bringing in.
I think we're pretty much at ground zero. I'm
Maybe
not sure
below.
how any lower.
We're a little behind, but, so, obviously Leanne was coming here, she was gonna start next week, she's not.
Sure.
I have contacted someone else to come in on an interim basis to start the digging. Susan Nasser is still coming in one day a week to try to get some things done that absolutely need to get done. We got payroll out yesterday, which, by the way, very important to the people in
Bills and payroll.
pardon, bills and payroll right now. And so to keep the basics going, what we owe you is those next levels, getting the budget out to everybody, getting updates out to everybody. All the money that is being spent needs to get categorized and updated to you.
And it's the last week to pay taxes. Leave the staff alone, they're gonna be very busy this week.
They are very busy this week, and so, yeah. Luckily, a lot of our taxes are taken care of through the township, but people still come in, and we still need to balance it. So, I think a couple moments ago, Sue was trying to get us to consolidate it. That's exactly what I'd like to do. I just wanted to hear if there was anything. But, so, I think what we can do is maybe consolidate, and you have a keen ear for this. I've heard, get the staffing straightened out, and so, and maybe with some notes, we can include, and within budget. You've got the manager, you've got the clerk treasurer, you've got the front office, which includes building, accounts ledger, we'll call that, accounts payable ledger. Am I missing?
I think what Eric was suggesting though is get everybody the budget. What did we budget for staffing? Are we within the budget for staffing? If we are, we want to know that. If we're not, we need to know that. Okay? Is that what-
Basically,
First step
on the
one.
basic level,
Right.
go to Oxford Bank. What accounts do we have? Do they correlate with what our records have? What is in there?
Yeah.
Start literally at ground level.
Okay.
And then determine exactly, as Bob just suggested. We anticipated that we would be here, however, we are here. Is that good or bad? Where are we at according to what our anticipated budgetary constraints are?
Like, we don't need to beat that up.
Okay. MERS. MERS got brought up a couple times.
Kind of like Eric's idea of just go to MERS, talk to our rep, get a report. We've had it generated in other communities where they'll tell you what the funding level, where you're at, what should be your plan. If you want to be at 80% funded, here's what you need to do every year for the next 6 years. If you want to be at 90, whatever. They're pretty good about it.
I just wanted to add to this conversation. I actually talked to Susan Nasser about that yesterday, just to get an update, because she's been working on it, making our payments and all that. So while we don't have the percent level funding information, we have been making payments. We've been doing, at least on a basic level, what we're supposed to be doing. We need more information. You're absolutely right, but we can get that. I think that's not
They'll give you,
super
they
complicated
will give
to
you
get
a,
done.
it's in
we're
their
on
best
top.
interest. They'll give you a program. They'll say, tell us where you want to be. We'll tell you where it should be. Then you decide where you want to be. Because you're not the only community who's a little low. You're not unique.
Almost everyone is.
Yeah.
But
Mr.
in
Miller, did you raise your hand?
Well, yeah, we were a little low, we were chief. A little low, we had taken 100 grand and hopefully.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
He was low too.
We were
Township was
low, we contacted MERS. We saw her, going down from 70s down to the 64, and I mean, it's
Yeah.
heading the wrong way. We got the contact for the lady there, very knowledgeable, should come in and do a presentation.
Yeah.
And that's exactly,
And I can tell you from personal experience.
That's what I want, right, Eric?
it's exactly,
Right.
because while I do appreciate multiple staff members reaching out, the questions that I have, and that I think we all should have, go a little deeper than that. If MERS is anticipating an actuarial report of 8%, which they are, no communities are receiving a return of 8%. They're receiving 4.5 to 6 to 6.5. And we need to find what their actuaries are suggesting. And it's got to be a little different than, okay, MERS, could you put together a program? Because our program we might want a more aggressive program than what MERS traditionally would recommend. I think the only way to make sure everyone has a full and thorough understanding is to not utilize third-party intermediaries with phone calls and emails, but to bring them to us. We are their client. They have representatives, as Supervisor Dunn suggested. We tell them when we want them to be here. They arrive, they put on a presentation, and then we pitch what we want, and they tell us how to get there.
They will do that. Yep. Bill, correct?
They do it.
Yep. It's in their interest to have you at a higher funding.
And Bill, not to get too deep in the weeds, Bill, if you just went through it, I'm sure they also probably mentioned the actuarial tables, GASB 67 or 68, and which has people living a lot longer, which
Exactly.
makes your payments
He's
go
right
out.
about the 8%. They use an 8% factor. I don't believe that for one.
No, not at all.
But they use it.
If that's what their actuarial, if that's what their basis of return is for the fund, they might be achieving it this year, but they probably didn't achieve it anytime in the last, well, maybe 2 of the last 5 or 2 of the last 7 they may have achieved it. All right, we'll do
But
that.
people are living.
Again,
Another good organization to reach out to, though, while we're seeking information is Oakland County. Granted, a lot of it has to do with investment timing, but Oakland County is over 100% funded. They make good funding choices at the right time. We would likely want to reach out to probably not only Andy Meisner, but whomever is directly in charge of managing their pension investments and things of that nature to find out what did you do. Because
It's just,
This is on camera.
oh,
okay.
Sure you watch it.
he's great now.
All right.
I don't want to just rely on one source. I'd like to find out what organizations who have achieved complete success have done so we can mimic them. There's nothing wrong with stealing great ideas.
Nothing, in fact, the world is...
All it takes is money.
Glenn?
One other thing with MERS and other retirement programs is when you talk to them, ask them to prepare multiple scenarios based on their projections in terms of an aggressive funding program in which you're at currently, and then if you have budget issues and you're not going to be able to contribute as much as you have because you've got other staffing issues and you'd rather put money into putting into staff or a fourth police officer or whatever, rather than putting it into MERS and OPEB and all those other fun things.
Right.
Is have them prepare multiple scenarios so that you're fully informed when you're talking to them about those models that they bring to you.
Okay.
In the back of my mind, and this is an alternative suggestion, but for funding, we're limited by our budget, obviously, and we have a tight budget. I'm not suggesting this is the idea, but ideas similar to this As far as an alternative revenue stream, Bob has mentioned securing a contract potentially with a cell phone tower
Right.
contractor. Different revenue streams that are outside of our budget that have not been committed somewhere else. We could utilize something like that, not place it in the budget, immediately dedicated. If we're gonna receive a contract for $5,000 a month for a cell tower,
It goes
or
right.
500, whatever it may be, it immediately goes in every single month for whatever our actuarial projects is gonna be required to get it to the funding level we think is appropriate.
Dedicated funding source.
$5,000 a month, immediately, thank you for the check, we send it to MERS.
What is the budget for MERS right now? What did we budget this year?
Without any documents, I don't know if anyone knows.
No, that's the
Nobody
point.
knows.
We don't know.
But I don't,
We know it, we just don't, you,
Oh, I
Did you
just want to say
read
I
it?
have something to add after
oh,
this.
okay. I was wondering if you knew that.
No, I don't right off. I've been looking into it starting
How
yesterday.
come you don't know?
It takes time.
How come you don't know?
I'm working on it.
you're fired.
What do you got, Joe?
You got to give it.
I wanted to add, there's one thing, you know, that we were talking about priorities. I think there's one major priority that's worth looking at as well, and that's our employee health care. I think that's an area.
That's down my list.
Needs to be renegotiated.
Well, I think it's an area that not only can we save money, we can make it less complicated, and ultimately that's a big draw for employees, right? When you're trying to attract a new manager and a new clerk and new office staff, hey, we have a really nice healthcare plan that, oh, guess what? It actually saves us a little bit of money too while we're doing it. When James was still here, that was one project that we were looking at, and he's been connecting me with some of the resources for a project he did with Romeo recently. But I think that's something really worth looking at to save us a little bit of money and you know, something better for our employees, give them something to be happy about. So I just wanted to add that to the list of.
Thanks. And I know that's what we were working on. I was putting that under making sure we had enough money budgetarily. Okay. Moving along, budget document, budget process, budget education. Correct? Heard that? Everybody okay with not that being budget document, process, and education? Simplification
Monthly status.
and monthly status. Thank you. You mean 1 out of 3 isn't good enough?
No.
Oh, darn. All right.
So that's one of her priorities, correct?
That's what I'm hearing. I'm starting to
That is a
consolidate.
priority, right?
Yes. All right, that's, I had down.
Don had mentioned ordinance enforcement and infrastructure needs and equipment. That also kind of goes back to police cars, etc. So we got that laying out there. Mine is get caught up on financials and things like that. I think that's still up in with the staffing and getting that straightened out is all sorted together up there. I had M24. Bob, you had things like, and I'll get the staffing straightened out. I'm gonna put the audit in under that.
Audits coming quicker than.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
We have a good team in place for that. The folks we work with have some good continuity with this village and its workings. I think it normally goes pretty well. True?
I was just going to say, for the audit, I've worked with James and Anthony, who we've had come in to help with some of the bond stuff. And with the audit, right now it's scheduled for the end of September. That's
Right.
But that can be flexible. We have, without filing an extension, we have until December 31st. I wouldn't recommend waiting that long. What I'm saying is that, you know, that is absolutely a priority, but we need to make sure that we get our information correctly entered and prepared for them so that they're not spending more time. to get that done.
I'll put audit as a separate category because that just absolutely and it's time consuming, so we'll get audit as its own category. How does anybody feel about M24 or the meetings? Bob's issues of well-presented meetings with no engagement returned to the public. That's out there. M24 is still out there. Infrastructure and vehicles. Infrastructure, vehicles. Those are three that are sort of still out there.
The meetings is just an ongoing thing. You know, the council needs to have a very well-organized, supported agenda. And the public deserves to see a well-organized, supported agenda. And then they need to see a village council carrying out the business of the village in a concise and well-thought-out manner. Bill, how long are your meetings?
They average about 35 minutes.
It's about 10 more than you want.
It's about 50.
20 more than he wants.
Right.
But
And I've been to your meetings, and it's a pretty succinct method of carrying out business.
you need the board members to do their homework. You know, if they come in there and start, you know, playing with the TV, I'm gonna get on them. I know if they've got a question on the fire department, they better go on there or call before the meeting. And that's what really helps is they're well prepared, and if they have a question, please call. Call the clerk, call the treasurer, call me, call the chief.
Call the manager.
Right. So that's what I'm talking about, and I think right now in this community, the public wants to see a business-oriented meeting carried out pursuant to an effective agenda that carries out the business of this community.
So to that end, I would suggest to the village board, if you have questions, either something that's on the agenda or a question that you want to bring up at the board meeting, please contact the manager, or an email, give me that question or a comment in advance. I will get you that answer. If you still want to bring it up at the meeting, great. You can then say, I've sent this to the manager, I got this response, I want you to know it. That's great.
It is not a violation of anything for less than a quorum of you to call each other. Or you can call Mo and say, well, what do you think on this? I mean, do you have any background? Well, maybe not. Mo, you know what I'm saying? Those aren't violations of any Open Meetings Act. Okay, you just can't reach quorum consensuses, you know, that's questionable these days on whether you can build consensus. But you can talk before the meetings. It's not, you can call me or him or Sue, you can talk to Eric, it's okay. You don't have to wait till the meeting to figure out the agenda.
I believe that takes place to some degree.
I think it
But
does.
I think,
Because I get calls from all of you on different issues.
I think the elephant in the room that we should come to some kind of understanding is while there are philosophical differences on the board, we are a divided board.
I'm happy
And
about
that, I think, is a positive thing. I don't believe in rubber stamping anything or silencing dissent. But I think there are issues where we need to have the ability to reach out to one another and find out where there is common ground in order to conduct a business-like meeting. And I personally believe that has gotten better in the last several months.
I think so.
I think it needs to be a focus of our council.
Yep.
And I think there is some, I won't say consensus building, but I think there's information sharing and discussion.
It's getting better, and just how it comes off to the public is is very important.
And they are watching. And they are commenting.
We don't know.
Well, they're not
Not so
watching.
sure.
They are watching, and so they're talking about it.
Right.
They are.
I'm not so sure they're watching.
Well, I don't know about watching, but I would say they know what they think they know what they know, but they're commenting on it.
The views are going up on YouTube.
I think they are.
They are.
I think people are watching closer than you think right now. And I think when you begin to have a steady, agenda-oriented business meeting, they'll watch this.
If you go to McDonald's in the morning, all the little old men are there, they're watching. They all know, they know what you wore, you know what you said, they all watch, they all talk about it.
What about the viewing of the township, up or down?
Both, because OCTV is consistently loading that onto their public pages, so more people are aware of them, and it's easier to access. You don't have to actually go look for it, you can just click right there and watch. So the views across are going way up on everything.
Good.
But especially,
That's great.
yeah, the meetings especially.
And in no way do I want my comments to be perceived that I'm looking for just this, everybody votes the same on every issue. I don't like that either. I think you do have diverse, but there's nothing that prevents before the meeting, Eric, you
Sure.
would call Sue and say, Sue, I'm going to tell you right now, I have a problem with this issue. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Agreed.
And keep the manager in those discussions, because there's nothing worse than a manager thinking this is not a big deal or whatever, and then you go to a meeting and it's anything but not a big deal. And a lot of times, the manager can help bring you perspective. Like, if you want to find out why you're wrong or right, you can ask me. And here's the other thing. I may have already talked to Maureen or to Dave or to Mayor, and I can say, hey, I don't know, but, Maureen mentioned this to me, and she brought up a good point. You may not be touching on it, but this is going to be her issue. And so then you find out, wait a minute, I got that same issue. Now you're not that far apart. It may be there's a compromise in there.
Sure.
But if you're mad or whatever, or you don't know, that,
Doing that at the meeting can be difficult.
yeah.
Perceived to be difficult. So I think we beat that enough. I think it's just a reminder.
Okay, so so this is what I got so far. Staffing straightened out with the budget and all the things that went with it. Manager, clerk, front office budget for staffing within the budget. What's the status? Police officer. MERS. Budget, document, process, education, monthly status, audit. I wrote number 5 in here, which has not been agreed to yet, but address infrastructure and equipment. And I think that, I don't know where you guys are with a 5-year capital plan or anything like that. I think in some short order, it needs to get resurrected so that you know what your key projects are and what your funding sources are for those projects. Okay? And I think under that, we can also include M20, maybe we'll do, I don't know if we should do it separate or different, but M24 needs to be separate. So we're now on number 6, M24 project. And by the way, I want to give you all a compliment, right here, right now. We've been at this less than an hour. All right? Very civil, very good dialogue. We have 6 priorities.
I have 7 that you already listed, so I'm numbering things wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I've combined some things in
But we
it,
don't need 30.
but we don't need 30.
No.
And
We need a manageable list.
with 6 or 7 tops, the next 2 or 3 months can be laser focused on these things.
Well, you
Eric?
No, I was just going to mention Lapeer when you get, N24 when you get to it, but I'll wait.
You've combined some of
Yeah.
the individual ones, so when you,
I'll
can
put
you
this
type
together.
that up and put your
Yep.
subheadings, because you really have probably 30 there.
Yeah, in little parts.
Right.
In little parts, which is what going back to, I said, can't we combine some of these?
And I
everybody
need
got-
to, because they get intertwined based upon what people are saying and what they need. If I only take one piece and I say, here's the staffing I need, but Eric wants to see the numbers and you want to see, the training and this and that, then I haven't accomplished anything, because I'm gonna come to the board and you're gonna rip it apart. And I'm gonna be back at, so I'll put my thoughts back in there, and that's why I also wanted Drew to take some notes and people to
Right.
make sure that I caught what we're talking about. This is really difficult. There's 12, 3, 5, 8, there's about 7, 8, 9 different voices putting in input. And this is good though, I'm getting it. I'm gonna put it back into a document, I will send it back out to all of you to proof and edit. But time's a wasting too. That's what I've got so far.
I think it's important to recognize that the organization of these tasks is up to you.
Yeah.
You are the one who's ultimately going to implement these. You're the administrator. The other people are the idea provider. How you accomplish them ultimately is up to you. And council shouldn't be micromanaging how you organize or categorize these taskings. It is the management team's responsibility to organize and hear what's being said to
And
them.
I absolutely appreciate.
He went to my training.
Yeah, I actually appreciate that.
Telling everything.
Council manager form of government. You guys are policy, you approve a budget, you approve land sales and things like that, all that stuff. The manager takes care of the day-to-day operations and how it gets done, and you hold him or her accountable.
Just for the background though, as to why that hasn't always been the case. There was a lot of, okay, I hear you, and then do your own thing. And direction was not followed upon. So that's why there's probably an emphasis on ensuring that there's a sender and a receiver in the.
And so let's go to that. So once we have this list in a form that everyone agrees upon, what are we going to do with it?
Manager's going to implement, and we're going to get a status
That's
update.
correct.
Status update, are we on track, are we not?
Keep us advised.
The end.
Right.
Manager hires, the manager evaluates, the manager fires, right? Do we understand that?
Yes?
Okay. The board sets a budget, the manager works within the budget. If the manager needs a amendment or an adjustment or a left turn,
Council must approve
he
it.
comes to the council and explains why he or she needs the deviation. Okay? If you say no, you say no, but then you can't hold the manager accountable for not getting it done. If he or she came to you and gave, now, he's still accountable to something, he can't just say, well,
Got to make it work.
gotta make it work? All right, well then you might not like the sausage when it's made, but you made a choice. Those are the types of give and take. I can't come to you and ask you for $1 million you don't have, and then throw up my hands and say, well, I didn't
So
get
when
it.
you're at your meeting and you're going through your agenda items should be items linked to carrying out these objectives and other routine agenda items.
And the other thing is, while the residents and the businesses are very well intentioned, they will come to you with the next priority, probably before this is even typed. And they'll say, oh, we need a stop sign changed, and we don't want parking here, or whatever. What are you gonna do about it?
Well, we got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah.
This is the skeleton.
You're right.
We also got to be able to conduct daily business, which that falls under.
Right.
And the answer is, well, we're going to take a look at that. We do have some other priorities, but as time permits, we will get a peek at that and take a look at it. But we really got 5, 6, 7 things.
And all of us go to work in the morning with our agenda, and then, I don't know how your day goes, but sometimes I never get to it, right? You think you're going in to do A, and A never gets on your plate. So we all.
But eventually A's got to
But
get,
eventually A's got to get done. We all understand. So we, but this is a great conversation.
I will tell you, we got maybe, it was a couple days ago, several phone calls that the beach bathrooms either weren't open or when they were open, they were closed too soon. Okay, that was that person's main issue.
That day.
That day, called up Don. Don was already on it. Okay. Does it rise to village board level? No, got taken care
Was
of.
it on your agenda that day?
No, no. But something bigger, comes up. You as a board have to be also some gatekeepers. And you have to say, thank you, citizens, thank you, businesses, we hear you, we're gonna look into it. But where does it fit in these 6, 7, 8 items? And if you say to the manager, hey, Mr., Mrs. Manager, that's pretty darn important. Any chance you could slip that in? It's up to the manager to say, well, next week is the audit, or next week we have interviews for a clerk. I'm gonna be in meetings all week, or I'm on vacation next week, whatever it is. It's up to that communication to find out, all right, can I delegate it? I'm not gonna be here, I'm gonna be this, can I delegate it? If that's okay with you, I'll delegate it. We'll still get it. But that's the kind of stuff, because before this is written, before this is agreed upon, it happens in a lot of places. Somebody comes with the next priority, and it may not be yours. That's how it just goes. Did I miss anything? And I'll be happy to go back through this. Staffing getting straightened out with budget information, manager, clerk, treasurer, front office, building department, accounts payable, all the staffing of the front office. Budget for staffing, where are we and what's the status of it? And I added the 4th police officer, because that came up as well, and how it pertains to part-time.
And that, I want to clarify something. That's 4 full-time officers, including the chief.
Okay.
Because right now, we're currently working under
Including
2 full...
the chief.
We're
4
at
including
2
the chief?
full-time officers right now, including the chief. So right now, we've been working without, that was already budgeted for, that full-time officer that when I came off afternoons,
Could you say that again?
Say that again.
Are we
You
at
say
3
including the
including the
chief.
chief?
you're at 2 including the chief right
What does that mean?
Who are the 2?
2 or 3?
Is that
now.
2 or
3
3?
including the chief.
Churchill and
And
Ashcroft.
neither of them are chief?
No.
So we're 3 including the chief?
Full-time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 including the chief, I'm sorry.
So we are 1 full short.
Yes.
I understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't either.
Okay.
However,
So we're looking for 1 full-time.
Yes.
Officer.
Additional from when my position is made to a,
Official.
We were supposed to have 4 plus a chief. We have 2 plus a chief.
But we have had 3 plus a chief.
we've had
For how many
3,
years?
we've had 3 plus a chief, we
Wow.
have
For how
4
many
plus a
years?
chief.
Because we never filled the 4th position.
So we need to
It's now
walk
the
really
5th
before we
position.
run.
Yes,
So we are looking to fill 1 full-time officer position.
yes.
Right.
But
I'm glad our-
With the goal of 2 additional.
Including the
Right.
chief.
No, and including.
Wait a
Either way.
minute.
Can we just put it on paper and come back?
Because you have been working, Sean, full-time for several years. So
Correct.
you're not really short. You're short a person that's not getting benefits, or that should be getting benefits. But you really have.
Overtime into full.
Correct.
Exactly. So you have 4 people, including you. You have Sean Brown, who's working, he's
The equivalent.
part-time, but he's working full-time and has been. You've got Ashcroft, you've got Churchill, and you've got yourself.
right.
So it's very difficult sometimes to understand what you're saying, because
Well, let me
I
try to
look at it
clarify a
and
little
you've
better.
got 4. You're just not paying benefits to a person.
Since February, or before February, you had me, you had Churchill, you had Ashcroft, you had Chief. Since February, you've got me, Churchill, Ashcroft.
Sean Brown was working full-time before the chief left. He's been working it for 2 or 3 years,
In a full-time capacity as far as hours, but
Exactly.
not with the...
not with the benefits.
Yeah.
But
And
you
that's
have
why-
had the hours. You've had the manpower and the hours and you've been able to cover the shifts. One of them is just not getting benefits.
It's cheap.
And we have fortunately kept that individual and he has not left
Exactly.
the building for us. And
Right.
that's what initially we talked about, that's what keeps employees.
That's why we ended it.
And
I
they hold on
understand
hoping
that,
for that,
but, yeah, and I understand that
Yeah.
part of
We
it,
ended
but
it wrong.
you have had the hours to fill it. You're fortunate that he stayed,
Yeah.
but he has stayed, and the fact is that you've had the hours filled.
So step one is you would like to make him a full-fledged,
Yes.
benefit-receiving, full-time officer.
Once I become.
And then step two would be in addition.
An additional, that's it, yes, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
All right, we got it? Does that include the chief?
Yes. Listen,
We talk about everything 24 for 1 second?
Yes, please.
Well, we might have it at 6 or 7. It probably realistically should be 2 or 3, if not 1, on Glenn's flow chart. Pretty high priority. While it is important for all of us. Correct. So I mean, it needs to be monitored and participated in with us, but it's a daily operation for what he would have going on. And I think it's important to ensure as often as possible, CJ and Bill Dunn are involved in as much information sharing as possible, because that's how the word gets out. And while it is our project, it involves them north and south.
Oh, it goes deep.
And the businesses.
It's the
And
chamber,
the
it's
business.
DDA,
It needs to
the
be
village, it's
hand
the
in glove.
township. Where'd Bill go?
He
You
got
go to
word.
give him something to do, he left.
He has a certain threshold.
Well, yeah, well, I was gonna give him something to do.
We reached it already.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know. So it's gonna be a huge team effort. And
And the DDA side, the DDA side slash, and the task force that's been through the DDA, we've been working on it quite diligently going along. Our priority already on the list, which obviously he's been told about, I think that is one of the main item when you walk in the door, that's our #1 hit list. Task force has been working on it quite regularly, working for it. They're already working with property acquisitions and stuff for right away and stuff like that. So I mean, it's,
Our planner's been pretty heavily involved.
money's been budgeted, we've been working with it as much as we can as far as our DDA budget. Money is going that way, but it's got a long ways to go yet.
this is multitasking. All this is gonna go on at the same time. The audit comes up like soon, like this month, next month. Staffing is in our face every day. MERS, it's interesting and it needs to make sure it's not blowing up, but that's some phone calls and maybe some meetings that I'm not belittling it, but it's important and it needs to get done. We're doing some things internally, again, about what we're paying, health benefits and things like this. Not that we want to change the health benefits, we don't. We want to get a handle on what we're paying for them. And is there a better way to get what we have now for a lesser price? And going on a month-to-month contract can't be the best way of doing it.
Agreed.
So we can do those. Addressing infrastructure and equipment, that's an ongoing thing. That's sitting down with our departments, making sure we can get together a priority list internally where we're going. I missed, there was one, I would never did, the real estate, that's something we can,
That's part of a resolution.
it's a resolution, we'll get that together as well.
Can you, as part of the budget, can we look at some form of the building department and the amount of consultant fees we're paying? That's a big budget issue.
Okay. Let me put down use of consultants and their fees inside the budget discussion that we'll bring forward. Great. Good catch. We have been at this a little bit. So, staffing, MERS, budget document, process education, audit, address infrastructure and equipment into a plan, M24 project. Again, not necessarily in this order, but as a group of 6 These are the priorities I've heard. Some things that were mentioned, some were just sort of educational.
Yeah, they don't have to.
Right. I got this. I want to go through some of your comments real quick. Ordinance enforcement.
It's huge.
It's huge.
And it's lacking.
It comes up at every meeting, every joint meeting.
Doesn't that kind of goes with consultant building department issues as well?
Well, maybe one
Well,
second. Let me, wait, hang on. I need specificity, a little bit more. You brought it up. Why don't you give me a little bit more? You brought it up.
There's ordinance violations that are in this community that we've talked about for years, and especially at budget sessions when we talk about trying to get our property values and our standard of living within this community to a certain level. And people move into this community with the expectation of abiding by a certain level of rules, as if when you move to a subdivision and you have those bylaws, you go to the next level of expectations that you're going to have to live under. And I just think that our ordinance enforcement, we lack on trying to get to that level.
Okay.
It's a continuity and a consistency issue.
And I'm our current ordinance officer, let me just,
Let's
let's
not
go
talk
back.
about
No, I'm
Let's
not.
not talk about personnel.
No, I'm not. Previous administration, previous ordinance officers were, yeah, I guess.
I think
Forgiving?
That's a very good word.
Okay.
So,
Well, you could say it like this maybe, is that for a long time, we've tried to get a consistent voice on ordinance compliance coming out of the office. And we've had some inconsistencies.
Okay.
And we've had too many people trying to answer the same question in different ways. So we want continuity and consistency in the approach. And regardless of who or where you are, the ordinance is applied the same way.
Doesn't matter if
And so
you're
people can,
Joe or Sally, doesn't matter if you're
so people,
Lake Home
Yeah.
or Washington.
so when
If you-
Eric is
if your
following
grass
the
isn't
rules,
cut.
he can count on Sue following the rules. We can count on Drew following the rules. And if Drew doesn't follow the rules, somebody goes and talks to him.
The same way they would talk to Mo if it was her house or
And
his
there's
house.
one voice on what the rule
And it
is.
doesn't matter if
One
you're a
voice on what
council
the rule
member or a council member's neighbor.
Right.
This is the rule, this is how it gets enforced.
And there's one version of the rule.
And one version of the rule.
and the authority to follow, to administer those rules.
Right.
A good way to get an idea of what has gone on ordinance is to look back at the last 12 months of the ordinance enforcement officer's report. You can go through, and I have, take a look at the specific addresses, the complaint, and the resolution. I'll use my 33 Spring Lake Drive, doesn't cut grass, spoke to them. You can find that comment in 7 of 12 months. At one point or another, you've been given a warning on number 1, number 2, you get a ticket, period. If we don't have any bite, no one is ever going to enforce the ordinance. We have a tendency of being forgiving.
You're not alone.
It's very small. I know it's ordinance enforcement, from what I understand, is one of the toughest things to handle.
It's a difficult job.
But we need to get away from the forgiveness, because Don is 100% right.
I think
There's an expectation of a well-kept community, and if you don't enforce
That's a
that,
good point. I had a community that is very similar to you, had the same issue. So recently they said, Mr. Lawyer, you understand our community, can you draft a stepped letter process that will be used on every ordinance case? So the first instance, they get letter number 1, which is, here's a donut, welcome to the community, we love you, but by the way, your grass is done. And then there's letter number 2,
And
and then
you
there's
have
letter
7
number
days to
3.
comply.
And after letter number 3, the matter goes to the city attorney. That's how they're doing it. And you know what? It caught on in about 6 months.
Do we need 3 letters, though?
Well,
We go to 2.
it was just their choice.
Because by the time you
No,
get 3 letters,
it was
it's
just their
14
choice.
months, and then we've gone back to,
It was just their
well,
choice.
they've been good for 6 months.
Well,
That was their choice. It
Okay.
could be 2 letters, it could be 1 letter. But from a lawyer standpoint, if you look backwards, if you hand an ordinance violation file over, you want to have the same thing in every file.
Sure,
The
absolutely.
first letter, which identified the violation, the second letter with escalated enforcement, and now we're going to take it.
because when you know, when you go in front of a magistrate, a judge, a
He sent
administrator-
those out the window. I told them last week, cut the freaking, really? We don't care. What did you write in? What did you say in writing?
Written record.
But it's not, what I have found too is that it's not necessarily, it's that part, but it's the not seeing the violations.
That's a whole,
And that's what drives me nuts, because I can drive by on a street and people are ripping up their driveway and I follow it for 6 weeks and then I ask a question and nobody's seen it. So where's our ordinance officer? Where's our building official? Do they never drive around the community and see these things? Don has told me about things. He sees them.
Chief sees things.
Dave Weppel drives around and jots them down. And Chuck Schneider does too. Pete sees them. But nothing is being done about it and you don't, it never appears on
Mayor,
the
please don't say
ordinance.
nothing's being done.
The biggest part of that is
There's some
Just today, I had 2 cases of our own employees catching people doing things without a permit. Just today. It is occurring. Are we communicating? Are we, do we have the, Chief, I'll let you speak about it. How are we doing it? It's more of how are we doing it and unleashing the people that are doing it. Was it your guys that caught, somebody today caught somebody roofing without a
That was
permit?
Mr. Churchill. Yeah, that was Churchill was yesterday, it was myself today, and the building official went out there today.
Yep, and we got to get a permit
Right.
today. Now, is that being, communicated to everybody? Probably not, because
No.
it's just what we do every day. We don't think about it that way. But maybe we need to think about it a little bit differently. And that's a good thought. You were gonna say something, Chief?
I mean, when Sue questioned about the building official and that whole process, I mean, basically right now you're hiring an outside consultant for so many hours or so much time.
Right.
So if they come here today and they've got X amount of inspections to do or reports to write or whatever, that's their day.
Right.
So as far as just driving the community looking for stuff, they're never going to do it because basically it's not in your contract or job description or what you're paying for them to do. They're here to do an inspection, that's it. So as far as them driving the community, because none of them are local, every single one of them is from away.
Right.
So they're coming here today, they walk in the office, get my work orders for the day, I go out and do my inspections, I come back, fill out the report, go home.
As far as the ordinance officer, that's a little bit different story.
Right.
And his report pretty much dictates what happens. And the direction needs to come to the manager, from the manager to the individual. This is the expectation. The infinite number of warning process is over. We're a friendly community, but we're a friendly community with standards.
Well, I agree.
And I think you can be both.
Oh, and I think if you combine the two, let's say you combine the two, the code enforcement officer has to know what the expectations are and our
Exactly.
expectations are. That's fine. Also, our expectation is that people get a permit. And I haven't seen this yet, and I will
Most do.
be up to you. Most do. Do we even have a permit placard? Because in most communities, the inspector, if he doesn't see that placard in a conspicuous place, he or she is free to stop and pop in and go, excuse me, can I see your permit? All right, write down the address, call the office. Hey, Kim, her name's Kim or Andrea, or whomever answers the phone, is there a permit for 23 Burdick? No. I'm already standing here. You don't have a permit. Stop work, come on and get it. that word gets around
Absolutely.
awfully quickly around, and it's a culture change. Uh-oh, there's a new process going on in this town. And I encourage our other departments, if you see something that's going on that doesn't look right, you haven't seen them, call the office. We'll figure it out.
Well, that's one thing that, I do drive the streets every day. I mean, we're just not, you may see me out just driving, but we are looking for multiple things. But also, we did put together back in like March or April, a whole list, like 2 pages of ordinances that I gave the ordinance enforcer, and then he started, working on them. And we did see some progress, but the problem is you see the progress of the things that were on that list, but it's the things that pop up between, that are from now back to March or April.
And do I understand, and I'm still learning, so I think I've seen him twice or 3 times in 2 weeks. I don't know what his schedule is. I think it's either 1 or 2 days a week.
2 days.
2 days a week.
Mondays,
So
Wednesdays.
he's not here 5 days a week or 4 days a week. He's here 2 days a week. So whatever, so we'll get around to it. So
We
ordinance
might get an
enforcement.
idea about using his reserve officers as code officers. So that might be something
Again.
that you guys can work on.
Again, I appreciate you bringing it, so I now have 7 items, including ordinance enforcement. If I have missed anything from this point on, send me an email. I will write this up. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask one more thing? That was on the list, and I know we've been working on this, 1822. Is that
What is 1822?
This building.
this building,
Oh,
this complex?
Did we do a resolution on that?
you did do a resolution on that, and as a matter of fact, so you want to, so as a
We've only
priority,
done 3 resolutions.
you want to do as a priority, just to be clear, you want to, you're talking about the rental of the open space, the third leg.
3/4 of this building is now empty.
Right.
So we have to decide, are we going to,
Right, I got it.
are we going to move in here? Are we going to move over there? Are we going to stay where we're at? and
Building
try and use the
usage
rest?
and rental.
Whatever we're doing with
Can
it.
I, building usage and rental
Absolutely.
of Village Hall. I'll call it Village Hall. Which is fine, because I've already had meetings on that.
Right.
Are we brain dead?
Yep,
Are we good?
we're good.
The public comment,
Whoa, whoa,
I'd love to
whoa,
make a motion.
Whoa, slow down. Let's have a motion to adjourn. Let's get, hey, first of all,
Public comment? You want to clap during public comment?
I sure will. I want to give you guys a compliment. You guys are not very good about complimenting yourselves. I compliment you, your decorum, your commentary, your willingness to work with me and others to hone this in. I also want to mention to you, you should have congratulated yourselves on your bond rating upgrade. I was talking with Sue. You guys got upgraded a couple of months ago.
We did.
You did.
We talked about it.
Well, congratulate yourselves, because that's
Should have had a party.
not something S&P hands out like,
Should have had cake.
they don't hand it out like Tic Tacs.
It's a great thing, although it might be short-lived.
Well, you didn't.
I'm not sure about that.
No.
I hope not.
I have a meeting, and I have a phone meeting next week with S&P. They do have us on what they call a watch list. They were a little taken aback, but we've also done some research, and we've done some things. And the best, if you want a silver lining, you didn't miss the payment because you didn't have the money. You missed the payment because it was a new payment, and it's not even clear whether they sent you the documentation to pay it correctly. So there's some blame to go around, even with the company, BNY Mellon. They sent it 10 days, we received it with a date, 10 days after it was due. So there's some blame to go around, but you already had the rating. That's important. They don't handle that like Tic Tacs, and they won't take it back, because I guess I'm gonna hope they don't want to go through what they're going to have to go through to do it. I think they'll just watch us, we'll make our payments. We've already set a schedule to pay them. And Anthony, who is the finance director of Rochester, informs me that we are able to put those payments into BSNA, which is our software system, to automatically pay them. I will confirm this with the attorney, but you have already approved those payments when you adopted a budget. They will go out as a perfunctory, they'll go still on the bills list, but they go out whether you agree or not. This is not your garbage bill. They go out, and they will go out on time, especially to avoid penalties.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Make a motion to adjourn at 7:05.
Support.
Motion by Thomas, supported by Owen, all in favor?
Aye.